Happy morning, children. Let's continue the previous supplementary reader, The Midnight Visitor, and we have to discuss the character sketch of three characters. We have to analyze three characters. One is Ausable, the next one the rival detective Max, and the other one is Fowler. Okay, children, let's begin with the character sketch of Ausable. Now, what is the highlighting character in Ausable? That is his presence of mind. His presence of mind, alertness, and so on. Isn't it, children? Now, let me discuss one by one. First, when we talk about Ausable, he is the central and interesting character in the story. Do you agree with the statement? Yes, definitely. And he is very fat. He is very fat and he has a wheezy voice that we saw in the first part of the lesson, isn't it? And he appeared to be very slow and sluggish person. Who is called slow and sluggish? One who is inactive. So actually Fowler, he came with a great perception that how the usual secret agents are. Similarly, he expected in Ausable also, but he was entirely different from the other secret agent. And first point, you can say that he is very fat. He is very fat and he has a wheezy voice, and you can also say that he is very slow and sluggish person. Now, when we talk about Ausable, again, though he seems to be sluggish, he is very alert, clear, and he had sharp brain. He had sharp brain. As he had sharp brain, what happened? He also has, or you can write in past tense also, he had a very sharp and witty mind. What do you mean witty? It is intelligent. He is having an intelligent mind. Coming to the third point, what did he do? He cleverly outwitted Max. He outwitted Max with his presence of mind. And you can say that he has quick thinking. He has quick thinking. His quick thinking, what happened? Saved the day for him. Do you agree with the statement? Of course, his quick thinking saved the day for him because he did not plan anything. He did not plan anything, but he anticipated the event. He anticipated in the sense he expected the event correctly, and what did he do? He executed his plan successfully and flawlessly also. What do you mean flawlessly? Without any error. He did make note of the important point that he did not make any plan at all prior. According to the situation, he just expected certain things, and he had plans and he executed it flawlessly, successfully also. So you can say that he is very clever and quick thinking. And when we talk about him in the introductory part, we saw that he is very fat, and they spoke about the accent what he was using, and he spoke French and German. He spoke French and German passably. What do you mean passably? Tolerably. He was able to speak in the acceptable manner. But he did not lose his American accent also. You have to note that also. He did not lose his American accent. The reason is he has come to Paris from where? From Boston. He has come before 20 or 25 years, so he did not lose his American accent also. Clear, children? And what else could be discussed? You can say that he is active-minded. I can add this here. Active-minded. As he had the active mind only, he is able to plan and he was able to outwit Max, isn't it? So you can say that he is active minded, and repeatedly saying whatever point you write, you have to quote incident or instances for the particular character. Clear, children? And actually he is so convincing. He is so convincing that Fowler could not understand his tactfulness. Actually, Ausable, he possesses the tactfulness, but Fowler, he could not understand. He could not understand his tactfulness, and he was so convincing because as soon as Fowler and Ausable entered the room, and they were talking about himself. And Ausable, he very well understood the mood of Fowler, and he told in a convincing manner that you seem to be disappointed and you are what? You have been disillusioned, and you also being bored. From that you can say that he is so convincing. Clear, children? And one another point is he never loses his presence of mind. He never loses his presence of mind. And the last point, you can say that he knows all tricks of his trade. Though he does not resemble a secret agent whom we expect, he knows all the tricks of his trade. Okay, he knows everything. He knows how to tactfully find a solution for a problem, how to face people and other things. So he is very tricky, we can say. He is very tricky, you can say. So using these points, I think you will be able to elaborate Ausable's character. Clear, children? And let's pass on to Max. Let's pass on to Max. Now, how about Max? Any idea about Max? He is the rival. He is the rival detective. That is one point. And when we talk about the physical feature, he is slender. He is crafty in nature. These are the points we came across in the text itself. He had a countenance. He resembles a countenance of the face. These are the points we already saw in the text itself. So the very first point, you can say that he is also a secret agent. He is the rival and enemy of Ausable. And when we talk about his physical feature, he is thin, tall, crafty and gullible. Who is called crafty? Who is cunning in nature. Crafty in the sense who is cunning in nature. Who is called gullible? Who can be easily cheated by others. Okay, so he is crafty and gullible. The next point, we can say that he is duped by Ausable. He is duped by Ausable. Of course, it is right, isn't it? Actually, he was overconfident that he can overcome or outwit Ausable, but he had been duped by Ausable. So that is one point. So you can finally say that he was overconfident. Leading to this point, you can say that he was overconfident and too proud also. But one another point you can say, you can appreciate Max for cleverly entering into Osable's room, because he is also very cunning to enter into others' room, isn't it? That also can be mentioned here, but he lacked presence of mind. He lacked presence of mind. He is also a secret agent similar to Osable. So he should also possess the same quality which was possessed by Osable, but it was not so. So he lacked his presence of mind. What other points could be included? Yeah, tell me. So as he is a secret agent, he must also be good at his work. Yes, he should not just he should not be overconfident that he can easily get the important document from Osable, because Osable is also a secret agent. He will be also active, and he will also have presence of mind, but he has misunderstood or underestimated Osable. So that is because of his overconfidence only, we can say. Clear, children? And so actually, Osable did not have any arms care. He was not armed with any pistol or something. Max, he was armed with pistol. So he should have thought in a tactful way how to overcome Osable, but he lost that chance. Okay, and so he did not think that it will not take much time to overturn his outcomes. He did not think that soon he will be outwitted. So that is because of his overconfidence only, we can say. And what else? What are the other points you can say? Actually, he is gullible. Why it is said gullible? See, he has been easily cheated by Osable. Though he is a secret agent, he did not suspect that Osable is trying to overcome. That's why, thoughtlessly, what did he do? He just jumped into the balcony and he lost his life, isn't it? So he should not have done that. And Max, actually, he shows his haste. What do you mean haste? Being in a hurry. He shows his haste in accepting the defeat. So that means he thought that he has outsmarted Osable, but he had failed in his act. Clear? So we can say that Max is a failure actually. He is a failure. Though he is a rival detective, he is the failure, we can say. So nothing special other than this, and let's switch on to Fowler's character. Though he is having a small role here, he too plays a wonderful role. Who is the Fowler? Who is Fowler? He is a young romantic writer, and he has he had a great expectation on Osable, and he was disappointed. Clear? This should be the first point. Then, what could be the other points? And he forms a very romantic and good picture of Osable. Secret agent in his mind. So he himself has formed a romantic and good picture of a secret agent, and he was awaiting to take an interview with Osable. Clear? But he has been disappointed by Asabul because Asabul was not to his expectation. Clear? So this man, he had expected a mysterious figure with some danger, having the pistol and having drugs in the wine and so on so. But that was not the case. That was not the case in Asabul. So what? Finally, he was disappointed. But sorry, initially he was disappointed. Finally, he is astonished. He is astonished by so many events that happened, and slowly he was observing everything, isn't it? And what else, what are the other points could be guessed here? Finally, he realizes. You can make note that he realizes how faulty his idea about a secret agent is. Finally, he realized that how faulty his idea about a secret agent is. So, initially he had a great expectation. So, but due to various events, he just realized that he had faults in his ideas, because Asabul finally proved to be a successful and true and perfect secret agent, isn't it? So, that is the mistake of Fowler, we can say. And he also learns that a spy or a secret agent needs to be smart more than anything else. He realized that. He realized that point. That can be discussed. It is up to you in discussing the character of Fowler, because nothing is spoke about him. You have to draw your own interpretation finally. Okay. So this is all could be discussed about Fowler's character. Clear, children? Now, that is all about the character sketch. When we talk about the message, what message to be discussed here? Yeah, in any situation, we should not panic. In any situation, we should not panic. Instead, what should we do? We should take a step. We should take a step and face the situation with great presence of mind. That is the message here. So let me write on the board. In any situation, we should not panic. Instead, we should take a step and face the situations with great presence of mind. As Asabul had the presence of mind only, he was able to take the step, he was able to anticipate the event, and he was able to make plans, and he successfully, and he was able to, without any error, he was able to execute the plan also, isn't it? He didn't have any prior plan, right? So that's the message. We can keep Asabul's character in the mind and we can draw the message, right? How to justify the title? How to justify the title? Tell me, children. How to justify the title? Is the title correct? Yeah, of course it is correct. Who is the midnight visitor there? Max. See, because of the sudden intrusion of Max only, there is a twist in the story. And the story became interesting, isn't it, children? So you can say that the title is apt for the story. The reason is, so the story revolves around Max only, as he had suddenly intruded Asabul's room. And there was a non-existent balcony, it was spoken, and finally he fell into death. So that is all. We can conclude the title justification also. Hope you are clear with the supplementary reader, The Midnight Visitor, right? So I shall send you notes for all these. So get updated with all the points. Do not forget, take down all the notes and go through the content. If you don't have book also, open the PDF file which I am sending and get benefited by that. Do not complain that you don't have a book. That's why you didn't learn. You are running short of time. You have to update with all the taught portions. Okay, children? Yeah. So this is the third lesson in supplementary reader. And I would like to continue with the poem which is there in third chapter. Already in third chapter we saw two stories about flying and two stories, that is one is his first flight and the second one is the black aeroplane, and the poem which I discussed is how to tell wild animals. That is the poem. In third chapter you have another poem, the ball poem. If you scroll and see a PDF file, you can find there is another poem, the ball poem. Can you take that part? Who's the author? John Berryman. The ball poem is written by John Berryman. Can you guess the theme of the poem from the title? The ball poem. What is a ball? It's a plaything. Yes, it is interesting. For whom it is interesting? For the children, right? So you too might have played with the ball in your childhood. Even now you might be interested. You will be playing with the cricket ball or whichever ball that is liked by you. So if you lose that ball, how will you feel? How will you feel? Will you regret? Maybe now you will not regret. The reason is, you know that you can get a new ball. It will not much cost. But in your childhood, just think you are in the age of 3 or 4 and if you happen to miss your belonging, miss your favorite, how will you feel? Won't you feel the sense of loss? Yes, won't you feel the sense of loss? Definitely, because you have valued that ball. You might think that that is your treasure. You might have thought that it is your precious thing which you own in your childhood. Isn't it, children? Yes. So, using the word ball. So, ball, it is symbolic. It is symbolic, and this is a poem on the lesson of loss. The poet speaks about the lesson of loss and responsibility. Loss and responsibility. So the poet argues that everybody has to learn the lesson of loss and responsibility in their life. That is the argument of the poet. And it is common that loss is general. Do you agree with the said statement? Loss is general and universal. We happen to lose things. It is in common. It is nature. Maybe we will be possessing some interesting things and we will maintain it in a secret way also. But if you lose that, definitely you will regret. You will feel for that, isn't it? Then finally you will realize you are not responsible, that as you are irresponsible only, you are not able to hold it throughout your life. That is how you'll realize, feel, isn't it? Same, with the same theme, the poet here, he talks about the harsh realities of life. The poet speaks about harsh realities of life. So that is the reality, isn't it? If we own one thing, definitely there will be a time where we have to miss that, right? So he speaks about the harsh realities of life. Clear, children? So these are the themes. These are the themes that is discussed in the ball poem. Now, our poet, he comes across a boy. Yes, he comes across a boy, he loses a ball. So, being a small boy, as he lost his favorite ball, he is very upset. He is very upset. And you very well know that that ball does not cost much. But still, it is costly. It is costly for the boy. And it is not so difficult to buy another ball also, but still the boy, he is feeling for losing a ball which is very favorite to him, right? And why then the boy is so upset? Let's read the poem to see what the poet thinks has been lost. Okay, so let's learn from the boy's experience what we should develop. Understood, children? Now look into the poem. What is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. So, what is the boy now who has lost his ball? Actually, ball here is symbolic of sweet memories of childhood. So, as you grow into the boyhood or if you grow into the adulthood, will you be able to get back the childhood memories? Maybe you can recall. Can you go to that stage of child? No, you cannot go back to that stage. You can just remember, isn't it? Now, the poet, he compares the ball to the sweet memories of childhood. Clear? Now, the poet, he is asking, what is the boy now who has lost his ball? What is he to do? So he is questioning what the boy is going to do after losing the ball. What he is going to do? He just lost it and he is standing there. I saw it go merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over. There it is in the water. Merrily. What do you mean merrily? Happily. Merrily, happily. What do you mean by bouncing? Moving up and down. Bouncing, moving up and down. As the boy was playing with the ball, as he left his hand, the ball went away from the boy and it was happily moving up and down the street and then merrily over, there it is in the water. So slowly it rolled and rolled and rolled and it fell into a water body. It may be a river or a pond or whatever it is not mentioned here. So it merrily, happily, it rolled and it had reached a water body. So once it is reached in the water body, it is not so easy to pick it up, isn't it? So the poet says, no use to say, oh, there are other balls. Now the poet, he tries to explain that if a small child loses something, how will we console the child? Maybe we'll get another ball. We'll try to get the same ball. If at all, what will we do? We'll try to get another ball. But here what the poet says, no use to say, oh, there are other balls. What do you mean, oh, there are other balls? Hmm? So he should not just convince. He should not convince that the loss is not important enough to worry about. That is the glossary meaning here. What do you mean by that? So if the poet tries to console that there are other balls, it is of no use. That is his idea. Why he says though? So because the poet wants the boy to realize the what? Realize the sense of loss. He should know the value of losing things. He should have the responsibility to safeguard things. That's why the poet says that it is of no use to say there are other balls. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. As he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. Now, this is the projection of the state of boy. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. What do you mean by ultimate? Final. Shaking grief, sadness. What do you mean shaking? It is shivering. So the poet says that it is an ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, trembling, staring down all his young days into the harbor where his ball went. So now the boy is in the helpless state, but he is grief. He is very sad, and the boy's mind is full of sad, and he stands rigid. What do you mean rigid? Stiff. Rigid, stiff. Without any movement. What do you mean by trembling, shivering? So he was shivering, staring down. What do you mean staring down? Looking fixed at one point is called staring down all his young days into the harbor. Now he feels that he has lost. He has lost his young days into the harbor. What is called harbor? It is the port. Okay, where his ball went. So he feels that he has lost all his innocence or happy innocence into the water where his ball went. Already I told that ball is actually the sweet memories of childhood. Now the poet says that boy, he has lost his memories of childhood along with the ball. Now where is the ball? It is into the harbor. So this creates a sense of grief. These two lines creates a sense of grief. I would not intrude on him. Who is I here? The poet. The poet says that I would not intrude on him. That means I will not interfere, or I will not intervene in the natural process of learning. Actually, now the boy is in the process of learning. He is learning. He is learning how responsible a person should be. He is realizing the value of loss. So the poet doesn't want to intervene in the process of learning of the boy. A dime, another ball is worthless. Now he senses first responsibility. A dime, what do you mean dime? It is the 10 cent in US. It is the currency. Maybe they can buy another ball using the 10 cents, but the poet says that it is worthless. Worthless in the sense it is not useless. Now he sends us first responsibility. If we give that ball also, there is no value for that ball, because now he is realizing his first responsibility. What responsibility? That he has to safeguard things, and once he has lost something, he cannot get back. That is the learning. It is going on in process. In a world of possessions, people will take balls. Balls will be lost always, little boy. Now he speaks to the little boy. In the world of possessions, what do you mean possessions? Materialistic things. Possessions, materialistic things. What do you mean materialistic things? Wealth and prosperity. So world of possessions means so many people are after the materials only. They want money. They want to live with prosperity. They want the wealth. They want to be wealthy, isn't it? So the poet says that the world is full of possessions. So in the world of possessions, people will take balls. So the poet says that in the world of possession, definitely people will take many balls. Many balls. Balls here refers to materialistic things only. And ball will be lost always. So however we gain, however we earn materials, one day or other we will happen to lose those materials. Okay, and no one buys a ball back. But once it is lost, we cannot get it back. When we lose something, it is very difficult to get back. That is the teaching given by the poet to the boy. Clear, children? And money is external. What the poet says, money is external. We cannot buy everything using money, isn't it? That's why the poet says that money is external. What do you mean external? It is superficial. Superficial in the sense? Superficial in the sense, things with which feelings are not attached. Can we buy a happiness using money? Maybe we can buy some wealth, we can gain something and we can enjoy the happiness. But we cannot use money to get back the happiness. We cannot get back all the feelings. All emotions cannot be got back using the money. That's why it is called external. He is learning. He is learning well behind his desperate eyes. So the poet says that the boy is learning with the help of his desperate eyes. Desperate eyes in the sense hopeless. Now the boy is helpless and he is in the very bad state of mind. He lost all his hope, but still he is learning something. He is learning something with the help of ball. The epistemology of loss. How to stand up. Now he is learning the epistemology of loss. What is the epistemology of loss? It is given in your glossary. Understanding the nature of loss. Epistemology. So generally our life is full of learning, isn't it? The reason is when we come across certain situation, when we are in certain circumstances, we are learning new things. Now because of the loss of ball, now he has understood the nature of loss. So that is why the poet says that he is learning the epistemology of loss. How to stand up. How to stand up in the sense, how to face the difficult situation. Knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days, how to stand up. So, from the epistemology of loss, he is learning. He is learning that every man must one day know. So, each and every person should know that most know many days how to stand up. So, he says that one day or other, everybody should know how to face the difficult situation. So, he is speaking about the miseries. So, the poet here tells how one should be responsible. One should be responsible and also to learn up, to stand up against all the difficult circumstances, stand against the miseries of life. Clear, children? So what happens? Through the poem, the poet wants to teach the importance of having courage. Okay? Through the poem, he wants to teach the importance of courage to bear the loss in life. So that's the theme of the poem. So it is a good teaching for you people also, that once you lose something, you realize your responsibility. Clear, children? So using ball as the symbol, the poet tries to teach the nature of loss and responsibility. So the poet talks about the harsh realities of life, and he also tells how one should be very responsible and also to learn to stand up against the miseries and sorrows of life. Okay, children? And so that is how the poet concludes the poem. And look at the 13th line. Balls will be lost always, little boy. So I told that the poet is speaking to the little boy, stating that balls will be lost always. So I told that people are always behind the materials. They want to gain so many materialistic things. So from the line, the poet tries to say that it leads to a realization. The loss of ball leads to a realization that those moments would not come back, just like the ball. So he can buy so many new balls in the sense he will come across so many situations, and he will pass so many stages, but the once he has lost the chance, that is like a ball, once it is gone, it would not come back. That is what the poet tries to highlight here. Clear, children? I hope you understood what is the theme here. Again, I'll repeat the theme. It is a poem on the first lessons of loss and responsibility that every person has to learn in his life, his or her life. That is the theme here. Let me note down the theme. So it is a poem on the first lessons of loss and responsibility. That every person has to learn in his or her life. This is one point, and you can say that it also tells us how one should be responsible and also to learn to stand up against the miseries and sorrows of life. So these are the two themes the poet has focused. So it is about loss and responsibility. Then again he speaks about the miseries and sorrows of life. Clear, children? So that is all about the theme. When we talk about message, the message is loss is universal. Loss is universal. Universal in the sense it is common for all, not only for the human beings, even for animals. They too have feelings, right? So loss is universal. And that one must get up and move on even after suffering the pain of loss. So loss is universal and that one must get up and move on even after suffering the pain of loss. So you may suffer a lot because of the loss, but you should not give up your mind. You should be courageous to move ahead in your life. That is the message here. Understood, children? I hope you have understood the theme of the poem and message also. Title justification, it is not a complicated one, as the poem is written revolving around the ball. It is justified that the title is apt. Clear, children? Now let's pass on to the poetic devices. The poetic devices. So poetic devices, you don't have any rhyme scheme because there is no proper framing of sentence at all here. So we couldn't analyze where the poet wished to give a pass, where is the full stop, what is he about to say. There is no proper verse here and we cannot decide with the rhyme scheme. Okay, there is no rhyme scheme for this poem. But we can say that we have anaphora. What do you mean anaphora? First you should know what is anaphora. Anaphora means a word should be repeated in a consecutive series. That is called anaphora. Okay. What is the what word is repeated consecutively? The word what. It is continued and repeated in the consecutive sentences, where in the first two, what. Again, merrily. Clear, children? So this is anaphora. And talking about the next is repetition. Repetition is different from anaphora. Anaphora means a word, if it is repeated in the consecutive line, that is anaphora. Repetition means a word is repeated in a single line. For example, what. Where can you find that what? What. It is there in the second line. That is repetition. And again about the ball. Ball is repeated in which line? I think it is in 10th line or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 13th line. You can find that balls, balls. So that is called repetition. Clear, children? And one another thing, alliteration. How to identify alliteration? In a line, if there are words which has same consonant sounds, then it is called alliteration. For example, buy a ball back. Buy a ball back. B, B, B. B, B, B. So, it is called alliteration. Clear, children? And coming to personification. Where have the poet personified? Can you guess? Actually, ball has been personified. Ball is a non-living thing, but it has been given human attribute. Where can you find? Can you remember a sentence? Merrily bouncing. Is it so happy? Ball does it have the feeling of happiness? No, but poet has personified the ball, stating that it is merrily bouncing. Clear? So that is called personification. So based on the question, you should be able to answer. Based on the given stanza, you should be able to identify the figure of speech. I hope you are very clear with the poem. Let's see the other topic in the next session. Thank you, children.